I have no problem seeing another scenario playing out where the conditions are right now for a third middle-of-the-road party. So if you put a new party into play right now that is nothing like what we have going on right now, people will cross the floor in both sides to join it. They're waiting for something like that.
Ivan, I'm skeptical about that one. I think you want a new party because you're fed up with the old parties. I'll make my pitch here for changing the electoral system, because the problem isn't the reason you're not going to get a political party that just tells you the truth in a way that none of these guys do now. Jamie, hi.
Hi, Christy.
Hi.
Of course, you said earlier that you don't think a politician could come in and just tell the truth in a way it's never been told, and that would make a difference. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Regardless of how uncomfortable it is, or how much I'm smeared, we're going to tell the truth.
It's Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King. He's the 10th Prime Minister of Canada. He said, once a nation parts with control of its currency and credit, it matters not who makes the nation's laws. Until the control of the issue of currency and credit is restored to government and recognized as its most sacred responsibility, then all talk of the sovereignty of Parliament and of democracy is idle and futile. In English, he's saying, if you let a private bank print your money, you're not a country. There is no democracy. Those with the printers are the deciders. Because when the banks are the sole source for the money, then the only way for the country to pay it back is to take all the money from the people and give it back to the banks. And then they still owe them interest. So the bankers say, well, what else do you got? So they seize your land, your resources, and Canada cannot get out of debt. We are the richest resource nation in the world, and the people are broke. They seize your land, your resources, your military, and eventually your water. When they come on and say, oh, we're going to have 3% growth this year, or 3.5% growth, does the announcer even understand what he's telling you? They're just reading. These men aren't experts. They have no idea what they're talking about. They come out and say, well, the economy is slumping, worse than expected. Expected by who? It's always based on analyst predictions. And then when it doesn't turn out to be 3% growth, because there is no growth, there is no job growth, everything is going to be explained to you that, well, we have to cut all these things because of the economic crisis. And then every year it's, well, it's a little worse than we thought, worse than analysts predicted. No, it's not. It's exactly as they have predicted and designed. We're not in an economic recovery. There is no recovery. And this is the truth. I didn't write it. This is what the truth sounds like. This is a math problem. We cannot get out of debt. It doesn't matter if you have a liberal government or a conservative government or an NDP government. The NDP wants to replace the Liberals. The Liberals federally want to replace the Conservatives. The Republicans want to replace the Democrats. And if any of those events happen, you will not have change. They just take your vote and take your support. Even if you donate $50 to the party, thank you very much. What do you get for that? You get the promise that eventually when they come to power, they're going to make things better for you. Well, they're not coming to power. Stop giving them your money. They're not helping you. They work for the same people that the party you hate works for. And the reason you can tell is because they've never told you about the banking.
We're waiting for it to collapse when we can move in, remove these men, remove the private banking system.
Because what you're talking about is a completely a different economic and political system.
Yeah, what we use around the world in every country now, using a paper currency, gets their money issued to them from a private central bank. And instead of countries issuing their own currency to their people for them to, function, whatever kind of country, a democracy, a communist, a dictatorship, whatever, countries used to nationally issue a currency, and that's what the people would use. Now the governments are borrowing this currency privately, and when the banks issue the money to us, like the Federal Reserve in the United States, for instance, they issue real paper currency, but when it's time for the government or the people to pay that money back, even if they were to give all the money back, they can't get out of the debt because of the application of interest, and the interest is not printed off. So the people in the country can never get out of debt, and as soon as your nation uses a private central bank, you're assigning your people into a perpetual debt slavery model that they can never get out of, no matter if you decide to increase stimulus and prolong the situation and, sort of put a stay on the depression, or if you want to go through austerity and have the depression come in rather rapidly, which is likely to happen, it's still the same result. If you have a private bank, your country is going to end up in default.
Well, isn't part of the problem that those dollars, those bills, those pieces of paper that we all carry around with us, or at least we used to, that they aren't particularly backed by anything. They're not backed by gold, which they used to be. We used to be on a gold standard where in the old days, in the 70s, I suppose, the $33 US was worth 1 ounce of gold. Well, these days, governments can keep printing this stuff willy-nilly because it's not tied to anything.
Well, that's absolutely right. All of our paper currencies are now backed by nothing. And so governments are printing uncontrollably. They do it in different ways. The United States, they physically print the money. In Canada, we don't physically print the bills. The currency is issued by banks as debt in the form of loans. We sit here and look at Greece and say, well, they retired too early, or they spent too much money on social programs or socialism. It's nonsense. They can't get out of debt, just like the United States can't get out of debt, and Canada can't get out of debt. No country can unless you replace the governments, bring in an entirely new economic system, and cancel and delete the debt. Everyone starts from scratch.
You're an intriguing fellow. We will continue our discussion with Jamie Scott.
This is not an anti-corporate agenda. Businesses should be able to make as much money as they want, as much money as they can. You want to make $1 trillion for your corporation? I am all in favor of it. But you can have no influence over government. And all we're going to do is enshrine into our Constitution safeguards so that corporations can't have influence over our government, so banks can't have influence over our politicians. And they won't if the governments print the money instead of the banks.
Jamie, thanks for that. We'll watch for your name on the ballot.
And to come in and promise huge house cleaning, I would consider voting for one of them.
You want a savior to come in that you could put your faith in, right?
I'd like to see that the last caller, I think that his name was Jamie, come in and be as honest and forthright as he has, because he's going to need one heck of a spin doctor to do it.
This is Robert Hemphill from the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve is a private bank that prints the United States money. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit. It is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. Our money supply is created and issued privately. This is the most important issue. Under our current economic and political system, this is the only issue that matters. That's why they say, permit me to issue a country's currency and I don't care who makes its laws. If you're the guy with the printer, you're the decider. We pay $1 billion a week in Canada to private banks on money that should never have been issued by banks. It should have been printed and issued by the country.